Hello, I'm James Toy, Senior Vice President of Government Affairs for KCRAR. You're about to watch one of our candidate interviews, an unfiltered, front row look at how those seeking office approach the issues that shape private property rights and the real estate industry as a whole. We share these conversations publicly so you can hear directly from the candidates, understand their positions in their words, and cast your vote with confidence. Mr. Funk, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're seeking office?
Sure. So I probably, I'm going to date myself a little bit. I moved to Lee Summit back in 1987. My parents built their first house just after I graduated high school. I've been here ever since. I started a business about 25 years ago, a small demolition company, and we've grown to, approximately about 30 employees, all are full-time people. And we've kept our business here in Lee Summit. And about 10, 12 years ago, I had met with the former mayor of Lee Summit, Mayor Randy Rhodes, and we talked about some policy changes and things like that. 10, 12 years ago, we know what the real estate market looked like. So we got together and talked, and he appointed me to the Planning Commission. I served about 6 years there on the Planning Commission, eventually becoming the chair of the Planning Commission. And I won't bore you with all the other boards and commissions that I volunteered myself to do during that role. And about a year ago, we had a city council member, due to some health reasons, he had to resign from his elected post. And I went before the council and presented myself and interviewed with all the council members and the mayor. And I was appointed to the city council about a year ago. So I've been serving for about a year. Something that's just kind of became the right point in my life where my business kind of functions on its own. I've got great management team. So it's given me the opportunity to devote my time to the city. And I think there's the growth of our community here in Lee Summit really shines in the fact that it's been really responsible and reasonable growth. We haven't had to incur any debt service or anything like that on our developments. So I think it just drives me even more to get reelected and continue the responsible and reasonable growth here in the community. I play a big part in our youth foundations. I was recently appointed to the board of directors of Lee Summit Cares, which during that process, I also sat on our youth court advisory board, which is it's a huge thing to me because I think young people truly are our future. And we want them to stay in our community, grow up in our community, and eventually go away to college or whatever they decide to do and come back and raise their families here in our community. And our youth court advisory board is something I brag on a little bit. It gets probably off the topic of what you want to talk about, but it is an amazing thing. It's the only thing here in Jackson County that actually functions wholly by youth. We have several seniors that are judges, lawyers, prosecuting attorney, defense attorneys. They have all actually passed the bar exam as seniors in high school. And what happens is when a student gets in trouble, maybe it's a simple offense for vaping or maybe some misconduct with pushing and shoving. Um, they don't have to get stuck in the Jackson County court system. They actually go to court and they're tried by a true jury of their peers. The judge is a senior in high school, the defense attorney that represents them, and it's a pretty unique situation. And their punishment goes through maybe Lee Summit Cares has a certified curriculum for behavioral health. They have a certified curriculum for substance abuse. Then maybe they have to go spend an 8 or 10 hour session to go through and do a rehabilitation versus getting stuck in the court system. But I'll get off my soapbox about that. It's a passion of mine, but it
How long has
drives me
that
a
been
lot.
going on?
It's been going on for about 5, 6 years. I think this is its sixth year, Jennifer, and I think it's something that it's been modeled in other communities. It just hasn't. Lee Summit has really dug in. Our board, we have a couple of attorneys that sit on the board. We have some mental health professionals. We have actually one of the Jackson County um, youth advisory administrators sits on our board. So it is taken very seriously, um,
Oh,
and
it could
it
change
brings.
these kids' lives. I
Oh,
mean, instead of
it
getting stuck
absolutely
in the
does.
system, they are able to hopefully see their mistakes now and not have future endeavors with DOC. So that's
Yeah.
very admirable. Although it is off of our housing topic, I will say
Nope.
it's
I don't. I knew
super
I didn't want to get on
intriguing.
my soapbox about all the things, but those are a lot of the little things that really drive me for reelection. I do see, and I know your advocacy for housing. We continue to grow, and I think one of our biggest challenges going in the next 4 years for this is how do we how do we get our single family market moving again? And I mean, I look around and you guys are the professionals, and I love our stakeholders input. Is our land prices are very expensive, construction prices are very expensive, the market and the economic times with interest rates, how do we do this? And I think it's density. We've had a lot of talks with our city staff of how do we rein in setbacks? How do we rein in lot sizes? How do we capture those things to help the developer move quicker? Not get tied up in the process, not worrying about maybe trying to stay at a standardized lot size. How do we do those things? And I think that motion that is going on in our development services process is going to make a big change for us.
Yep. Well, I don't know if we have everybody situated or not yet. Do we, James?
We do, and really appreciate your responses on that. I know that you had said it's off the topic of housing, but this is always a good reminder about the wonderful things that are happening in our communities and all the great charitable efforts. So we very much appreciate you sharing that. Gary, is your mic working, or can you hear
It
us?
is working now. I'm sorry about that little problem there. I've got it corrected. Donnie, I'm a neighbor of yours. I live in the paddock right next to Legacy Woods where you live, and I've been a resident of Lee Summit in the past 25 years. In fact, my brother and I did a development called Oak Tree way back when in 1986, year after you moved here, I guess you might say. So I'm pretty
Yeah.
familiar with what you've done and your accomplishments and your rise of 12 years on planning commission and also just filled in from I think you filled in for Fred DePietro, I think, and that was great.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good addition for you too. So I guess my question, I see just tons of apartment complexes and I drive every day to work. And I think we've got a lot of them right now, maybe too many. I don't know. Um, do you feel as though we have too many apartment complexes going up now, or what's your situation there? I know we need residents, and we also need sustainable housing too, more than anything else. But yeah, what do you think of that?
Well, I don't want to use the cliche remark that all those were voted in before I got there. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not a fan. And I'll tell you why. I think we built a strategic plan. We understood. I was part of that process, and a lot of the citizen stakeholders that were involved. And I think when the first domino fell for the multifamily housing, it became a trend that I didn't know if we were going to be able to stop. And I think the council now understands that, hey, we've got this balance of housing. We've met these numbers. We were trying to stay within this margin of error of I'm going to throw the numbers off the top of my head, that we were trying to get 10% multifamily into our market.
Mhm.
I will say that I fully understand development, and I understand that these developers who want to bring activity centers like our streets of West
Mhm.
Pryor and the East
Mhm.
Village, where that's a complicated site where the old Pfizer plant was. And
Right.
it made it, to me, I have to admit, I voted yes on that project. It made sense to
Mhm.
me for that to be a multifamily use.
Okay.
At the second phase of that project, I will tell you, I'm not a fan of additional apartments. I would like to see some townhome living, some row house living, something that
Mhm.
brings us maybe a for sale product. But that site being complicated. Now, I will tell
Yeah.
you where my office is located and where I'm sitting talking to you guys. When I look to my left and my head turns, I'm looking at a big apartment complex going up across the street from Lee Summit North High School
Yeah.
that I am not a fan of.
Mhm.
So that was a long-winded answer, Mr. Dirks, but the answer to your question is I don't think if we have vacant land and somebody says we need to build apartments, that is what our community needs. So my answer
Sure.
is no.
Okay.
I think my focus when it comes to the housing market is looking, and I say this a lot. I'm not trying to be cliche because I think we've been successful with engaging our stakeholders. And I think your organization is a great organization that somehow needs to be engaged with our city council of what are we doing? What are we doing right? And what are we doing wrong when
Mhm.
it comes to developing our new UDO to generate a more stable housing market? Is
Right.
it truly the setbacks, the lot sizes?
Mhm.
I have tried. We were recently in Jeff City. I have a great relationship with the governor. Um, you know, Representative Engel and Strickler. I've had this
Mhm.
conversation with them and Representative Patterson in regards to how how can we at some point incentivize a single family residence? How can we
Yeah.
get involved in maybe developing the infrastructure? The high
Mhm.
cost of this is
Right.
infrastructure. And
Mhm.
the sad thing about Lee Summit, it has a city within a city. I mean, we're the
Mhm.
fastest growing city, we're the
Yep.
sixth largest city in the state,
Mhm.
but we have a lot of areas that have zero infrastructure.
Yeah. Yeah. Follow-up question. There's a ton of land north of Douglas. I'm sorry, Colburn. We're north of Colburn Road. That's going to get developed sooner or later. And you know the land I'm talking about.
Hmm.
That would be
The
an
mo-
ideal. We're talking about what, a couple thousand acres at least. That would be an ideal blueprint for Lee Summit to adopt of how they're going to develop that into houses and maybe have to be smaller setbacks, things like that. But I'd like to see something from Lee Summit looking at that when it comes down the road to be developed. You think
what
that's too much to ask?
Well, I will tell you that is exactly 2,231 acres.
Okay.
That is, there was a conceptual about, I want to say about 3 months ago that was presented to the city council, 3 or 4 months ago by they changed their names around. We used to call it the PRI ground. It's probably
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
politically correct to call it the Mormon Church ground anymore.
Right.
I think their new entity, but before when it was Property Reserve Inc., it was a non-profit
Mhm.
um, organization that owned the land. Now it is Land Reserve Inc., which is a
Okay. Okay.
profitable company.
Mhm.
Um, but part of that land, I will tell you, coming from Colburn and going north, is
Mhm.
all slated to be single family housing.
Okay.
Once you kind of get down towards the Strother Road
Mhm.
area, there is some commercial land there.
Okay.
They are in they are in talks. And there's no secretive to it. With a couple different commercial developers.
Okay.
And when I say commercial, not multifamily, there is a small activity center that showed in there that showed some multifamily with some transitioning to duplexes,
Mhm.
transitioning to a 55 and older community.
Okay.
Again, all
Mhm.
conceptual.
That's
Yeah.
Um,
great. I'm going to shift gears a little bit because we've covered the housing, the single family, and I, for one, honestly think that some of these great apartments that you're talking about could eventually be condomized to create more homeowners. So I think maybe there's an opportunity for that in the future. If you look at some of the major cities, they've actually done that. So maybe you guys kind of keep that in your Rolodex. And maybe those apartments aren't so bad because they could create home ownership in the future. But I'm going to take us down the economic development track a little bit. Obviously, you guys have a lot of robust businesses in Lee Summit, but there's still a lot of ground that is left to be developed. And rooftops are wonderful, but tax dollars by and large come a lot from our commercial businesses. So what do you have planned in your mind, kind of, Donnie, for economic development, shaping the future of Lee Summit for the existing businesses and then new businesses that might want to come into town?
I wish there was a way that I could share about 2 or 3 things with you.
Yep.
That
Don't violate any NDAs now. Don't do that.
that I can't.
Yeah.
But we had a wonderful visit Tuesday at the Capitol, visiting with our state reps. We have the 17th. We actually fly out on the 15th of March to Washington, D.C. I can share we are very close. It is a $300 million project with MoDOT. And I want to recognize the great work. It was not me. I was on the planning commission. We had a few little nuances in there, but the great work that was done with the partnerships between the state, the federal government, and MoDOT for the new interchange at 50 and 291 North.
Yes.
But the $300 million project that I am speaking of is bringing 470 up to 4 lanes each direction.
Right.
Wow.
It needs to be. Yeah, it
That's
needs to be.
impressive.
Yeah.
That is, we flew in on our broomsticks, and we sat on our broomsticks with Senator Searport, the governor, and we explained to them that it's beautiful everything you're doing on I-70. And I'm gonna loop back to your point, Jennifer. Everything that I-70 has done, taking that to 6 lanes, but I-70, what we had to show them that was their own MoDOT count is I-70 transfers about 40 to 60,000 cars. I-470 from coming from the Kansas side, looping around through Lee Summit to connect to I-70 transfers 70 to 79,000 cars.
Mhm.
That's
Right.
why every day at 4 o'clock, you're sitting there thinking, man, I wish I had another cup of coffee to get my way home.
Mhm.
But there is some, through our local economic development corporation, the Lee Summit EDC, city council and some developers that have already begun construction in a development called Discovery Park, have really took a liking to a lot of the 470 corridor that would bring, I do know one I can mention is a going on the what would be if you were at the 470 and Strother interchange. I'm a big proponent of it because we are known as a healthcare corridor, but possibly an extension of the nursing college would be located in that area. There's a lot of industrial that's been talked about around our airport. We are close to securing the funds for our control tower, and the FAA has agreed that they will fund. They don't build them; they fund them for operation, which is huge. There's a lot of things that I jump on, and you're in my lane right now. So somebody tell me to shut up because I can ramble on about economic development.
No, I
You
heard a
know,
lot of good things about healthcare, right? So it sounds like that's going to be a
Mhm.
priority for Lee Summit, and you're well positioned with planning and zoning, hopefully to hit some of those home runs for Lee Summit for that. So that's wonderful. What about data centers? Want to drop the data center bomb?
So we have not been approached. I will share with you that I kind of have a little heartburn, maybe everybody else on this call, about losing our Kansas City Chiefs, but
Mhm.
um,
James
I
is from Florida, Donnie. I'm sure he told you that in the beginning, right?
well, he's losing Tyreek. He might be coming home, but
Well,
no,
and,
I'm
Uh,
and,
kidding.
and full disclosure, Donnie, I'm from Wyandotte County. So while I know you have some pain, I'm having some excitement.
Well, I agree. You should, and thank you for picking up the tab. Uh,
Hey, Donnie, I got a question
um,
for you. As far you talked about infrastructure, we had AT&T years and years ago. It's gone. Why hasn't Lee Summit been able to attract any major corporations?
I think we don't, we're very, very limited on what I call Class A, Class B office space.
Okay.
You when I get out and I talk to people, some people say they like our bedroom community that everybody wakes up, they go somewhere and go to work and they come back and they play. I think we're on the cusp. Again, walking the fringe areas of some very nice Class A um, office buildings. Maybe not true Class A, but I would say Class B plus that
Okay.
will bring some of those folks back, and really attract some things that may come from Kansas City, some things that may come from over there in Wyandotte County that want to get out of there. Now,
Mhm.
I think we're real close, and
Mhm.
I think the main attraction for a lot of that, when people talk about data centers, when people talk about our industrial, um, I've went out and joined our EDC in conversations. I've talked to people one on one. I'm not afraid to pick up the phone. I spent an hour and 10 minutes on the phone with Costco when
Mhm.
we were trying to lure them here. Um,
Mhm.
but people say our infrastructure, when it comes to road networks, not necessarily our underground infrastructure, because they want us to take care of that, but our road network, when you get involved in MoDOT, you always hear we're broke, we don't have any money, so we always cost share with MoDOT, which is awesome because it shows how wealthy our city is that we can cost share and move these programs forward faster.
Mhm.
But two lanes on 50 highway, 2 lanes on 470. Anywhere you get out of Lee Summit or come into Lee Summit is 2 lanes, and
Mhm.
that's where I kind of put my
Okay.
foot in the ground and I want to advocate for this stuff, is because that's
Mhm.
what's holding us back.
Mhm. Do we have
Donnie,
a
I'm going to jump in and switch gears a little bit. First of all, thank you for your service on planning and zoning. I am currently the chair of the Unified Government Planning and Zoning Board, so I appreciate the work that you do because we're continuing to do it, and it sounds like we're going to get a lot busier with what's going on. But community trust and effective leadership are essential for local government. What experiences or accomplishments best demonstrate your readiness to serve? And I know you spoke earlier too, your planning and zoning experience, but maybe you could elaborate on some other roles.
I've had the opportunity when I was on planning and zoning. I don't know how Wyandotte County works, but each planning commissioner gets assigned a liaison position to, like, our community economic development committee. We're not a voting person, but we are a liaison there. We used to have a liaison to the Public Works Committee, and then we have a liaison to the Finance and Budget Committee, which are all council members. And my time as a planning commissioner, I took the liaison role to those just to learn the finance and budget aspect of the government, the public works aspect of the government, and being able to have the opportunity, moving into a council role. I think my peers, when I was appointed to the city council, I was voted on by the current council and the mayor, and I think that's what shined through was my years of experience and the things that I gave to learning the other processes of the government, and it shaped me to walk into a council role and to be able to be successful starting day one.
okay?
Great. Thank you very much. James, I think you're going to take us home, aren't you?
Yeah, Jeff, really appreciate that and great response. I'm just curious, realtors are very involved in your community, whether it's with local businesses, helping their clients get into new homes. And I'm just curious, what is your pitch to realtors in your area? Why should they cast their ballot for you?
I tell all of them that I want your knowledge. I think it's valuable to me because I can't be one single person up there making decisions on everything that I may or may not know about. And I want their vote. I want them to be my community partner. I want you to be my community partner because I want to look to you as resources. It's not about what I want. It's about what the people in our community want. I'm not here to divide anybody. I don't, as local government, we're nonpartisan. I don't have a choice on what side of the aisle I sit on. But for our local realtors, I see, hey, we need to understand what's best in a suit. You guys, not only do you see Lee Summit, but you see all of our surrounding communities. You see the other side of the state. You see all these things. What can we do better? I want your vote. I want you to support me because I want to come back to you and say, hey guys, what can we do better? Is this part of going down the rabbit hole with our ordinances of going back to the topic of setbacks, lot sizes? How can we get to help these builders with infrastructure? How can we do that? How can we partner with that? Our incentive program is amazing. It's top notch. Our legal team that does our incentive program, I mean, those guys are top notch. I rely on them for everything. And we've sent them off on a mission. How can we incentivize a developer to build a multifamily or subdivision? How can we help them? We need that information. And long-winded answer to your question, I want you to vote for me so I can come back to the professionals and say, what can we do to work together? I want you to be a stakeholder in this with me.
Well,
Makes
very,
sense.
very much appreciate that answer. And it sounds like you would certainly be willing to work with realtors. And I'd advise you just be careful what you ask for, but really appreciate that response. Donnie, thank you. This has been an absolute pleasure to have you this afternoon. Is there any questions we can answer for you?
I really appreciate getting the opportunity to do these interviews and throw my pieces out there. I'm a long-winded person because I like to tell a story about how I get to an answer. But I think with you guys, I mean, I think it's really important that whether you decide to endorse or however your process works, I've gone through several of these over the last few weeks. Um, your guys' opinion really matters because yes, we have a diverse council. We have realtors up there. We have commercial realtors up there. We have lawyers up there. We have construction workers, insurance business owners. So looking to everyone, we're just the voices. I just want to be the voice. I want to be the guy that gets to talk all the time and say all the fun things and go do some of the fun things that we don't really get to do all the time, but we try to go do fun things. But to be able to communicate with people in the professional industries to give us the feedback. When we go have a council meeting, the only people you see come to that public comment section are the people that are mad about something, not the people that are happy, not
Or the people that are
work-
running for office. I try to go to every commission meeting. And if
Yeah,
I don't go, I listen to it. So
you have to. But it's about getting that feedback, that communication, and
Right.
getting the input from the stakeholders in our community. And obviously the realtor groups, they're the biggest stakeholders. You guys are the ones that are making the butter turn around here, whether it be commercial or residential.
yeah, that's great.
I like that
Well,
term.
thanks again, Donnie.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Really
No
appreciate
problem,
your time.
guys.
Appreciate it. Thanks,
No
Tony.
problem. Just holler.
Appreciate it.
James,
Have a
if you
good-
need something, just give me a shout.
Likewise,
All right.
we're here to help anytime. So appreciate it. And you have yourself a great afternoon.
You too, man. Thank you. Thank
All
you,
right.
guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
sir. Bye.